Welcome to Storycraft Portal, where every tale is carved from truth, emotion, and the raw edges of human experience. Today, we bring you a haunting chapter from the unforgiving slopes of K2, a place where the wind screams louder than words, and the snow buries more than just footsteps. In the fateful summer of 1986, two close friends, John Smolich and Alan Pennington, set out to conquer the world's second highest peak. But what started as a dream ascent soon spiraled into an unthinkable descent into darkness. With no trace ever found, their story remains suspended in the death zone, a chilling reminder that on K2, glory and grief climb side by side. This isn't just a disappearance. It's a real mountaineering tragedy, stitched together by K2 deaths, sacrifice, and the ultimate price of passion. Welcome to the death zone. John Smolich and Alan Pennington stepped onto the K2 base camp with more than just gear. They carried belief, ambition, and a bond stronger than the ropes they trust with their lives. The icy wind hit their faces like a warning, but smiles stayed firm. "We've trained for this," Alan said, voice muffled in his scarf. It was June 1986, and climbers from around the world were pouring into this unforgiving giant shadow. The glacier cracked beneath their boots, a reminder that K2 deaths weren't rare, they were expected. But John, calm and calculated, believed in numbers, stats, and steel nerves. Alan, a heartbeat climber, emotional, impulsive, trusting instinct over caution. Their partnership balanced the mountain's chaos. Neither spoke of fear, but their eyes lingered a little longer on the summit. They didn't know it, but they'd already crossed the line between adventure and a real mountaineering tragedy. The first week at base camp was filled with drills, mapping routes, testing oxygen gear, and sharing nervous laughter with other climbers. John kept a logbook. Alan scribbled thoughts on napkins. Together, they studied every inch of K2's Abruzzi Spur, the route that promised glory or silence. Rumors of avalanches whispered through tents, but adrenaline drowned fear. The mountain looked deceptively still, a white titan cloaked in ancient secrets. One morning, John stood still, eyes locked on the summit. "It's not a climb," he whispered. "It's a crossing." That line haunted Alan for days. As the team set off for Camp I, heavy clouds stalked them. Radios crackled with warnings, but they pressed forward. Every crunch underfoot brought them closer to both achievement and K2 death statistics. With each step, they unknowingly walked deeper into a chapter of real mountaineering tragedy, where survival wasn't guaranteed, but obsession was. Reaching Camp I wasn't just physical, it was psychological. The higher they climbed, the less the mountain spoke. Everything became silence and breath. Their tents flapped like warnings. One climber returned early, frostbitten and pale. Alan asked, "Why stop?" The man replied, "Because she doesn't want us here." That night, as winds howled like spirits, John heard snow shift outside. He didn't sleep. In the morning, a fixed rope had vanished. Whether cut or blown away, no one knew. But doubt began to seep into Alan's eyes. John tried to stay composed, but even he felt the mountain watching. Every successful climber had left something behind: fingers, friends, sanity. As they climbed to Camp 2, the oxygen thinned, and so did their confidence. Yet they pushed on, driven by something deeper than ambition: fear of turning back. Their names were not yet among the K2 deaths, but destiny was pacing quietly behind. Camp 2 offered no comfort, only cruelty. At 6,700 meters, every breath burned. Alan's nose bled through the night. John's lips turned blue. Yet, neither spoke of stopping. They laughed through exhaustion, calling each other stupid for climbing this death trap. But under their breath, both knew something felt wrong. A climber in a neighboring tent collapsed. His teammate tried CPR, failed, then simply zipped the tent closed. "It's part of it," he said coldly. Death wasn't drama here, it was normal. Alan began hallucinating, saw movement in the snow that wasn't there. John logged his thoughts. K2 has teeth. Their radio stopped working. No contact with base camp. They were alone now. Fully, finally, terrifyingly alone. Still, They prepared for Camp 3. The air had no mercy, the mountain no heart. This was no longer a climb. It was a passage into the silent zone of real mountaineering tragedy. Camp 3 was the last checkpoint before death zone decisions. Everything hurt, lungs, limbs, logic. We go now or we never do, Alan said, gripping John's arm. Weather forecasts were grim, but courage drowned the warnings. No one forced them. K2 tempts you to climb by whispering through silence. One team turned back. Another lost contact entirely. Alan and John prepared anyway. Before they left, Alan wrote a letter and gave it to a Sherpa, "In case I don't come back." He smiled while handing it over, but his hands trembled. John looked back once at the horizon, then zipped his jacket. The summit was calling. Maybe it was madness, or maybe it was purpose. Either way, they climbed. As they vanished into the thin white void, a storm began to grow behind them. The line between heroes and names on the K2 deaths list had never been thinner. Visibility dropped within hours. The summit route disappeared into a white void, as if the mountain swallowed its own trail. John's altimeter jammed. Alan's gloves froze solid. The two roped together, moving in silence, every step now a coin toss with fate. Then a scream, short, sharp, gone. Alan slipped. John caught him just in time. Hearts racing. They leaned against each other, trembling not just from cold, but from the realization. K2 doesn't want survivors. Radio silence confirmed what they feared. They were on their own. A fallen climber's body marked a previous failed summit bid. They stepped over it quietly. John whispered, "We're not gods, Alan." The summit ridge appeared through swirling snow like a ghost calling them closer. Still they climbed. No drama, no glory, just two fading figures chasing a peak that never forgives. This was no adventure now. This was the womb of a real mountaineering tragedy. John's lips were cracked, eyes bloodshot. Alan's movements were jerky now, oxygen deprivation slowing his mind. But the summit was near, painfully, cruelly close. They were just hours away from the top, but every footstep felt like dragging a body through cement. 5 more meters, Alan muttered, but his legs buckled. John pulled him up. The sky was clearing just above them. Cruel timing. Then they made it. K2's summit. No flags, no cheers, just silence. They hugged briefly, tears freezing on their cheeks. John wrote the time in his notebook, 5:47 p.m. A photo was taken, never recovered. As they turned back, the storm returned like a trapdoor slammed shut. Alan whispered, "We're not making it back." And somehow they both knew it. The top of K2 had given them a moment, but demanded payment. This wasn't triumph. This was the prelude to AK2 death. The descent is where most K2 deaths happen. For John and Alan, this became truth too quickly. Darkness fell, bringing a storm with teeth. Their route vanished, headlamps died, and frost crept into every joint. Alan stumbled, rolled 20 feet, and screamed. His crampon had ripped away. John climbed down to him. "Leave me," Alan begged. "Not a chance," John whispered. They tried sheltering under a snow shelf, but it collapsed during the night. In the chaos, they lost their packs. Oxygen gone, food lost, only silence remained. By morning, they could barely walk. John dragged Alan on the rope, step by step. They were no longer chasing survival, just trying not to disappear. Their final radio attempt crackled. Base. Camp falling, then nothing. The mountain had closed its grip. One body was later spotted, never recovered. One was never seen again. This was the heart of the real mountaineering tragedy. Weeks passed. Rescuers combed the upper slopes. Other climbers gave statements. They summit, one said, but never came back. Helicopters couldn't fly that high. Hope turned to ritual. A boot was found weeks later, half buried. No body, no guide, no final note. Just questions frozen in time. Alan's letter remained sealed. John's notebook was never recovered. Rumors filled the void. They split up. They fell into a crevasse. They're still up there, preserved forever. What made this different wasn't just the mystery, but the bond. Two best friends who faced death together and disappeared together. Their names were carved into the memorial stone at base camp, among many K2 deaths, but something about their story ached more. It wasn't just a mountaineering tragedy. It was unfinished. The world moved on. The mountain remained silent. But those who climb today still speak of them, the ones who reached the summit and vanished into myth. Official reports marked them as presumed dead. No bodies, no answers, just coordinates and dates. Yet their story refuses to vanish. Climbers still whisper their names before ascents, as if to borrow courage. Alan Pennington, the heart-driven dreamer. John Smolich, the logbook man who trusted logic. Together, they became part of the mountain, claimed not with violence, but with silence. K2 didn't kill them brutally. It absorbed them, as it does with those it chooses to keep. In their absence, their story grew. Books were written, tributes filmed, but no photo, no proof ever replaced the weight of their final steps. Alan's letter was read years later. "If I don't come back, don't grieve. We knew the cost." And John's logbook? Still missing. Maybe it's still buried somewhere above 8,000 meters, frozen in time. The case was closed, but their souls remain, eternal figures in the greatest K2 tragedy ever told.